Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Takeoff Core training and open discussion. With us is Dee and Darius. These guys know everything there is to know about takeoff, and this is the time that you get to ask everything that you always wanted to know about takeoff and you didn't dare to ask. So welcome, guys. I see that there is quite a bit of a turnout here. As we give attendees another 30 seconds to join, feel free to use the questions and answers section to tell us where you are coming from, where you are logging in from. For example, I'm Eduardo, a product marketing manager here at PlanHub, and I'm joining from Utah. Darius, where are you guys logging from?
I'm in Atlanta.
Awesome.
And I'm based in Boca Raton, South Florida.
Welcome, everybody, and we're going to, without further ado, give the floor to Dee, who is going to guide us today in this presentation. The questions and answers Q&A section is going to be open all throughout the presentation. Feel free to share your questions at any time. We'll have a time at the end to answer all those, but feel free to just throw them in there as you think of them, okay? So Dee, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. This will be, of course, going over our Takeoff Core product. We call it everything you always wanted to know about Takeoff, but didn't dare to ask. So what I'm going to be doing today is primarily going up. Well, first off, let me just tell you a little bit about this. Manual measuring, as many of you know, is prone to error. Pencil and paper just don't get it. It's not collaborative for remote working, and it cannot be shared in real time. These are all obvious things, of course. Desktop software, less convenient, but secure and less secure and less collaborative. Digital solutions, they tend to be very expensive and are not typically a one-shop solution like PlanHub is. So let's talk about some of the things I'm going to be covering today. We've made some new feature changes within the product that I will be touching on. The Takeoff dashboard is an all-in-one place where I can see all my projects and get to the takeoff function very quickly. I'll be talking about outside project takeoff, which means that I have my own PDF files that perhaps PlanHub does not have in one of their jobs. I can upload those. We have some customizable settings that I'll be talking about, the individual measurements, how we can customize them. We've implemented a newer, cleaner, user-friendly UX. The all-in-one tool, all-in-one wall tool, excuse me, has been enhanced, and we're going to go over that. The ability to save a sheet rotation. So if you've done something and you want to turn your sheet to the left, we'll save it that way instead of it reverting back to its regular orientation. We've improved the area tool, and we've added ortho functionality. And for those of you that don't know what ortho is, it simply means as I move my cursor to measure, a line will follow it. So a line from the last point to the next one I'm going to click, it will follow that. Okay, so I'm going to switch this here and let's take a look. Okay, so I'm showing here the main screen. I'm just going to show you how I got to where I'm going. This is from the main screen. I logged in. When I logged in, I clicked dashboard and it took me to my dashboard. What I'm looking for, though, is this little button right here with the rocket beside it, Takeoff. When I click that, it's going to take me to a screen, which is the Takeoff dashboard, where I can choose the job that I'm going to be working with. Now, I've already chosen this Twin Lakes Publix and retail shops, and I'm going to switch over there just as if we had clicked on that. It would show like this. This is the actual Takeoff screen where all the activity takes place. What I'd like to do is familiarize you with some of the areas of the screen first. So along the top here, you will see that these are the functions I will be performing. It's like setting my scale or making a ruler measurement, like this little ruler measurement right here. Doing area measurement, count, linear. I'll be going over this tool, which let me go ahead and explain up front. Linear means a multi-segmented line. Segment means every 2 points that you click is one line. So just that delineation there, just be aware of that when I show that to you. Wall area, of course, we are going to talk about that with the enhancements. Working with sloped areas, going to give you an example of how we apply a slope to a certain area. We also have volume measurements. Then we're going to do talk about some markup with text, and then using the little drawing pen here. So that's our functions right across here. On the left side here, you'll notice this says that I'm currently selected as a count. I had count selected before, actually. And when I click on count, you'll see that the color purple shows up there and the opacity shows up as well. So if you need to change that, you can. And if you need to change color, you can. Okay, so I just made it red and 84% opacity. Of course, the middle of the screen is where all the action takes place. So I'm going to be measuring within this area of the screen. On the right-hand side, I want to call your attention to this measurements list over here. So as I make measurements, they will be added to the list, the bottom of this list over on the right. I'll be referring to this a little bit more in just a minute. So in the question and answer session, several people have answered with the trades that they work in. We do have a very diverse crowd of trades here. So I am going to be going over every single function, but please know that there may not be one of these functions that is applicable to your line of work. I'm simply doing this because we have all of these covered with all of the different disciplines that I'm seeing on the question and answer box. Okay, so first off, let me talk about the select function. The select function is, as you would expect, it's just to go in and select something like a measurement that you've done. I'll be using that quite a bit throughout the demo. The other thing I'll use quite a bit is the pan function, and this allows me to grab the drawing and move it around like this, panning it around if I need to. To zoom in and zoom out, I can use the magnifying glass down at the bottom right here, and I can do this plus or the minus, or I can use my mouse wheel. Okay, so I'm just rolling my mouse wheel in and out. Okay. Next, very important, we have to set the scale for every drawing. Now, there are two ways to set a scale. I'm going to click here, and it could be one where we know the length of a line, and we want to assign whatever the length value is to that line by clicking 2 points. And then there's also the ability to use a standard scale. So a standard scale would be something like 1/8 or 1/4, etc. Just for this purposes, I'm going to say this is 1/4 scale here. So I'm going to set that, and you'll now notice there's a little bitty protractor over here showing up. And that means that a scale has been set for this drawing page, okay, only. Now, when I set that, let me do it again. When I set that, I can have the apply to all plan sheets button turned on if I like, and it will go ahead and assign that to all my sheets. Generally, I find that the sheets have varied scales in them, so I don't know if this is, just be very careful, be cognizant of this when you set your scale. A calibrated scale was what I mentioned earlier that I wanted to show you again. This is going to say, okay, give me a line of known length. I see some 12s back here, so I'm going to use one of these lines to calibrate the scale. So in this particular instance, we got a 12-foot, 0-inch span, and I do want to show that dimension line. So I'm going to set that. All right, and now we're set to 1/4 scale. So I got about 12 feet. So you see there, I just did a little measurement there, almost like a measurement to set that scale. I just went to the length of the line there and set it at 12 feet. So now once we've set the scale, we're ready to roll. I'm going to skip the ruler function and come back to that in just a second. So let's go to the area function first. And I don't think this will be surprising to anyone. You've probably seen this around. And I'm just going to simply go click around the edges of whatever my area is that I'm measuring here. So let's go around this way. And I'm going to go over here. And now I'm finished with the measurement. So I can do one of two things. I can double click, or I can hit my return key to stop that measurement. You'll notice over on the right that it's keeping up with our measurements here. And that particular measurement, if I click on it right here, it kind of pulsates. So it shows me where it is on the plan. Very helpful, very useful, I should say, when you're zoomed out and you have a lot of measurements on here. The screen gets a little busy, so you can make it really pop out if you need to get to it by just clicking there. All right. And that literally is all there is to the area function. Notice again up here that our color and our opacity is showing up, and the stroke meaning the line around it, and then any fill texture you might need. So this is that customizable settings that I mentioned earlier in the intro. Okay, that's our area function. Next, our count function is very simple, straightforward. Every time I click, that is a count of 1. So if I just start here and start clicking, I'll see that, okay, I'm getting these little round things with the dot in the center here. That's our representation of count. Again, with counts, you can also change the color of the counts if you need to, and opacity. Just like the area, the count function shows up over here. And if I click it, the counts will pulsate. The linear function. Now, I mentioned just a little while earlier, there's 2 actual linear functions here. This one, called linear, means it's a multiple segment line. So I'll show you an example of that now. I have a line that I want to trace that goes around this way. So as I click, the ortho line follows it. And you'll notice that, of course, it's not filling in like the area was. That's because it's a line measurement. Go around here, and I'm going to quit. All right, now, here's that linear measurement right here. And I want to talk about this feature that applies to all measurements. This is a good time to interject this. If I have other things to measure, if I click out of that measurement and I'm here, but I realize, oh my gosh, there's another part of this that I forgot that needs to be part of this 37 feet right here. This slider button right here means continue. So if I click here, it says, okay, this measurement right here is going to continue. And as I make the additions, then you will see that this number is changing. I can't scroll down for some reason. I can't get to that arrow there under here. But anyway, you'll see this is changing here. So it's adding a little segment below it. Sorry about that. Right there. Okay, so it's adding these together to get 57.13. Okay, that's the first and second lines that I drew. So that's the linear feature. And again, it's multi-segment. The next one is the segment type line or segment linear. If I click here, every 2 points that I click represent a line. So every time I click the mouse twice, it looks like this. 1, 2, and 1, 2. This is especially helpful for those of you that do long runs of material, specifically HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. So if you do this a lot, you're going to have a lot of runs that are jammed together. Perhaps they're hung in a racetrack, but you can quickly do this. You just do your measurements for your lines, for your runs. Okay, that would be our segment feature. Next, we have wall area. Now, wall area has got a couple of things in here that are kind of nice. Of course, my wall height, I'm going to give that the wall height and say, let's move. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go to an exterior elevation set to do this. So I'm going to go over here. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Let's don't do that. Let's do this here. So wall area, I'm going to assume that I have a 10-foot wall. And if I want to add drywall or add a type of wood or masonry unit, then I simply click that and I tell it how many layers of drywall and what my sheet sizes are. So if I say there's going to be 2 layers on each side of the wall, then I'm going to add a wall type here. So let's say that it's a wood framed wall. So now I'm ready to go. And I've got to move some of my Zoom stuff out of the way. And I want to set it. Now, with this wall, I'm measuring a wall. I've already told it that it's 10 feet. So as I go along a wall, perhaps I'm going along this one right here. And I'm going to go out to here and click. And now when I go to the measurement, down here, oops, I need to double click there. Okay, now when I go to the measurement down here, I'll see I've got a wall area of 1,079.93. So it took the dimension that we gave it and it applied it to this dimension that I drew to get the wall area. Next, I'm going to talk about a sloped wall or a sloped area. For a sloped wall, then it depends, of course, if you're on plan view or elevation view. But if you are measuring a line that represents a sloped wall, you would tell it linear here. If you're measuring an area, surface area, perhaps a roof that is on a slope, then that would be applied to here, which is the one I'm going to use first because I want to show you the slope factor down here. It's a slider. It's standard slope factors from 112 up to 24/12. Okay, I'm going to just say we got we'll do a 512 pitch, which is fairly standard. Set it. And now I can measure the area that I want to apply that slope to. Just going to measure this little box right here. All right. Now, if I roll down and look at the properties of that measurement, here we go. There's our calculated square footage based on the slope that I gave it of 512. Next, we're going to talk about volume. So with volume, generally, most of the time, 95% of the time, this has to do with concrete or gravel or perhaps maybe some earth movement. Can be anything like that. So the volume works like this. If I click volume, and again, I have the same type of question. I've got an area that I want to apply it to or a line that I want to apply it to. This time, let's choose a line. Okay, so we're going to say line, and we're going to be digging that line down about 12 inches deep. Actually, let's make it 24 inches deep. And it's going to be about 24 inches wide. So now it's going to take the line that I measure, multiply it times these two dimensions, and I will then have a volume. So if my footings perhaps run here to here and over to here, double click to finish. Now looking at my measurement information, here we see that the our volume is always expressed in cubic yards. So the volume calculation for this box was 30.27 cubic yards. Next, let's talk about the markup features. On the markup features, I can simply put text in if I need to. So I'm going to click here, click a box, and I'm just going to type some text here. So check this measure. So just a matter of just keying in whatever text you want it to be. I can come back and move this as well, and I can also make it larger. If I can get my cursor right, there we go. So I'm just going to move that around to show you that. That's our text markup. And then we have actual markup with our pen feature. It's almost more like a magic marker. So if I want to make sure that I'm calling out some attention to a certain area, I can circle it with the markup there. Okay, so those are most of the features within the Takeoff system. I think we should probably open it up to a Q&A at this point. Is that right, Eduardo? Is that what you want to do next?
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for showing us how to use Takeoff Core. We appreciate the refresher. And yeah, we do have several questions. Maybe we can start with number one from Ronald. He was hoping that we could explain freeform lines and toggle and at top right over library tab.
Okay, Darius, if you're on here, I know you're on here still. Darius, could you tell us about freeform lines, please?
Sure. So you know how you talked about the ortho functionality,
right?
So with the ortho functionality, the lines are snapping to every 22.5 degrees.
Gotcha.
Right? So when you're working, let's say you're working on the plans of an apartment building, right? The floor plans.
Yeah.
So architects typically will provide you those drawings, and all the lines are vertical and horizontal. They're not going to be at a weird angle unless you have a wall inside that's, at an off angle.
Right.
However, when you're working on a site plan, right? Typically on a site plan, you're going to have lines that are all over the place, right? In terms of the angles that they go on. So on a site plan, if you hit the toggle freeform lines, you can put that line anywhere you want. It will not snap to 22.5 degrees.
Gotcha.
Right. And when you need to have it snap, right, like true vertical, true horizontal, and at like 22.5 degrees to like 45, and then 67.5, and then 90 degrees, which is vertical, you can put that toggle back on, right, to help you have those straight vertical and horizontal lines.
Okay.
That's what the freeform lines are.
Okay. Multiple counts. I believe this is from Howard. Howard, you're asking, can you do multiple counts? I want to make sure I understand that question. Are you saying that you want to say, and I think this is probably what you're getting at, is for every click that would represent multiple counts. So every one should be 5. Is that the correct answer to that question? Or where I'm going with that, I should say?
Howard is replying on the Q&A and says a different symbol. If we can have like measures for A, B, C items, I think.
Oh, I see. So let's say, for example, Howard, let's say if I'm counting single sink vanities, I want to see that separately. And then if I'm counting double sink vanities, I want to see that separately. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So we don't have different symbols, but what you can do is, let's say, for example, if you use the count tool once on the single sink vanities, let's say on an architectural plan, there's 10, like an apartment building. There's like 10 apartments, and you're going through and you say, I want single sink vanities. Click the count button, start clicking, count up all the single sink vanities. On the right-hand side, you can even rename that count to say single sink vanities. Then once you're done, go back, click the count tool again. This time it's a completely new count, right? Now you can go through and count up the double sink vanities, right? And now you have 2 separate counts, one for single sink, one for double sink, and then you can rename them, right, accordingly, so you can see them separately as well. Additionally, once you've done that, and you want to see everything for the whole entire project, because your project's going to have multiple sheets. So what you're going to see is on the right-hand side, the measurements for the sheet that you're working on, right? If you want to see, let's say, for example, you counted up single sink vanities on floor 1, that's sheet 1, and then you counted up double sink vanities on floor 2, that's sheet 2. On the tab project measurements, you can click on that, and then essentially you have a table where you see everything. Since you're driving, that's right next to Twin Lakes Public and Retail Shop where it says project measurements. Right on the,
Right.
if you click on that, you see the whole entire table for all the measurements you've taken across your whole entire project. And then let's say, for example, on that count, and if you scroll down, I saw D label something
right there, single sink vanities.
Right. And then on the location, you can actually click on the location. It'll take you exactly back to where you were on Takeoff on the sheets that you were working on.
That's awesome. And you can use different colors as well, right? So it's not only
Absolutely.
The system is not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you can do it by color.
Yeah, if you go back and click on double sync vanities for us, please, D. Okay, so now you see right underneath the select tool where you see the red square, rectangle and count. D can click that and change the color on it. So now you can differentiate it by color, and you'll see the colors change on the drawing sheet as well.
Great. I think Howard, let us know. I think we got your question answered. Yes, perfect. We have a lot of other questions. Let's go back to the top here. Can you rename the count and area to label them?
Yes.
Yeah, we just did that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we cover all the questions on that topic.
Can you use different icons for the counts, like different symbols? Not at the moment. Not at the moment, but it's something worthwhile considering.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I see a few other questions on counts. Yeah, so different counting of different types of equipment. I think that we kind of answered that as well.
Yep. Also, Raphael's question, what does the count button do? The count button allows you to count items, right? Sinks, light switches, electrical receptacles in the walls. It allows you to do a count for those particular items.
Great. Any plans on adding a radius feature in the future? This is a question
that is
from
something
Jason.
that is something that we're actively working on. Right now, the radius feature becomes very useful. Let's say, for example, when you're on a site plan, right? Because there's curves. One thing that we've noticed is when you use the linear tool, if let's say, for example, or even the area tool, if you want to go around the curve, you can just basically like click and follow the curve, right? And you can actually hug that curve very closely with the linear tool, or even when you're doing an area, let's say in a parking lot, you've got a nice island that is like separating the cars from one another, and you need to know, let's say, for example, you're using the volume tool and you want to figure out like, okay, for this concrete island, how much cubic yards of concrete I need to pour. You can follow the curves as you're drawing the line, right? By putting points along the curve. And as a product manager, I look at like how much time will the radius tool save me versus just clicking along the curve. And I noticed in a few products, when I do have a radius capability, it takes me a bit longer because I have to fiddle around with the radius to get it exactly right. Whereas I just drop the clicks and follow the line, it was just quickly I got it done. But it's something that we're considering right now.
Thank you, Darius. There are a few more questions. I know we're running up to the top of the hour. Does the wall area compute one side or two sides?
So the wall area tool does, it's what I call like the Swiss Army knife of tools. So let's say, for example, you have one layer of drywall on each side of the wall, right? So then you say basically 2 layers, right? And it'll calculate how many sheets of drywall you need for that whole wall, because you said I need 2 layers, one on either side. Let's say it's a 5-hour rated wall, 6-hour rated wall, and you need, I don't know, 4 2 layers on each side, right? So then you say, I need 4 layers. When you want to calculate when you want the tool to calculate, let's say, for example, stud spacing, you can say wood or metal, and then you put how many inches on center, right? And then you measure the length of the wall. And when you say, like, say, for example, like 16 inches on center or something to that effect, it'll calculate based on that on center how many studs you're going to need. For masonry units, you say my wall has masonry units in it. You put the height and the length of the masonry unit in inches. Let's say it's CMU, and so you put 8 height for 8 inches height and 12 inches long in length. And then based on that, when you measure the length of the wall and you've already also put in the height of the wall, it'll calculate exactly how many CMUs you're going to need.
Perfect. We have time for a few more questions. How do you calculate ceiling for painting? Bob is asking.
So area tool, right? So if you measure the floor area, right, oftentimes the floor, the ceiling is a mirror reflection of the floor, right? So if you measure the area, use the area tool to measure the floor, you'll exactly know the surface area of the ceiling.
Perfect. We have a few more questions on markups. Can we name and identify markups, and can we export them?
Right now, we are working on the capability to print. We don't have export of markups, but however, in the project measurements, the measurements that you have taken, you can export those out to Excel.
Great. I see a really interesting question here from Kelly. How precise is Takeoff, and how much training support will be allotted? I am new to the industry and to reading roofing plans.
Okay, so let me answer that question in the following way. When we developed this product, right, we wanted to make it as simple as possible, right? There's a lot of Takeoff solutions out there on the market. And to be quite honest, a lot of them are very complicated. It's sometimes, now, academically, I'm an architect by training, right? So I know how to create plans in CAD and Revit and all of that. Some of the Takeoff tools that are out there available on the market are so complicated, it almost seems like you need a PhD in using those software. So when we went to build this Takeoff solution, we wanted it to be really simple and easy. If you've ever used, let's say, for example, any Microsoft product, right? You look at the toolbar at the top, you see you have count, linear, segment, right? Play around with the tool, okay? You get a 14-day free trial. I guarantee you, if you spend half an hour, playing around with the tool, how do I use count? How do I make a linear measurement? How do I use a segment? You will get how to use this product in about half an hour. Okay, that's what we want to strive for, to make it this as easy as possible and not have it complicated, right? You take a measurement, you see your measurement, you can export your measurement if you wanted to in Excel. So simple and easy. I would say, if you've ever done a Takeoff, the old school way, I'm looking around to see if I still have the old school way is print out your sheets, use one of these things, which is like basically a scaled ruler, right? That many architects use, and I've seen in construction sites, many people that do estimations have one of these, and they're like on the sheet, calculating things. If you've ever done a Takeoff on paper, manually, using a ruler, right? You can figure out how to use this product literally in like about half an hour. That's how simple we wanted to make it for you.
With that, all users have access to our customer success team. So you will be able to get your questions answered at any time, being a PlanHub user.
Absolutely. And our customer success folks are great at answering your questions, and even getting on there live with you to see what you're doing and guiding you through it. And I'm telling you, like 30 minutes, you'll figure this software out.
Perfect. Well, we have run out of time. We still have a few questions out. I'm sure that we can reach out to everybody that has questions, and we can answer them as well. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Darius, for your time. We really appreciate the walkthrough Takeoff Core, and above everything, we appreciate the support that we get from PlanHub users. Thank you for joining the webinar and for your questions. We'll make sure to reach out to you and answer any other questions that you may have. And for you guys to know, we will have this training on regular basis every Tuesday at noon. If you have any questions, if you have new members in your team that you want them to check it out, this is going to be an ongoing thing, and you will be able to get your team trained for free. You know, kind of going to towards the last question there. If you this week you are doing something and you kind of figure it out, and you can either reach to your customer success agent, or you can just log into the next webinar. We'll be here. All right. Well,
All right.
thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you for joining.